Football, sliced and diced with Sedgemoor FM and Somerset FA.
Welcome to Sliced and Dice, where we're having open and honest conversations from local football. I'm Avril from Watchet Football Club, Neil Fellows from Sedgemoor FM, and Paul Coltman, marketing consultant for Somerset FA.
So you said you sit there and you swing on your chair. You stay.
It's all right, and I'm doing it as well now. It's contagious.
Yeah. Try to stop.
So you're with Watchet Town.
Yeah.
Tell us about what your role is there.
So I'm the manager of, official title is manager of the first team, their men's team, which plays in the county league. But I say that's my title. My role, I am part of the club. So the role is bigger than that, in going right down to the under sixes, right up, and supporting the reserves and the whole group. So that's my role really within that.
Massive group.
Yeah, lots of people. I don't know them all yet.
How has your journey got you to watch it?
God, it's been a long journey. You're talking years. I was 6 when I started football.
We'll start there.
How
did football look for you at 6?
So football was very difficult for me. I was thrown into what was essentially a boys' group, a boys' league, when I was 6 years old, because my dad was obsessed with football. He had my first season ticket at 6 months old for Walsall Football Club. He was obsessed, and he had 6 girls, so he had no choice. And that was difficult because I love football. I still do, and I did then. I went to training. I'd be there every week. I'd go to matches. I didn't get played. Didn't understand the concept then, which as I got older I started to realise there were no other girls in that league. The coach was terrified to put me on the pitch, whether that was an embarrassing thing or I'm not quite sure. I played in my first game when I was 11 because too many people were injured, and I think my dad may have got a bit leery to get me on the pitch. And in my first game, I scored 2 goals. I played left back, I scored 2 goals. I played the rest of the season, got player of the season. No other girls in that league. Fantastic time to be told by my coach at the end of that season that the FA would no longer allow me to play football. There were no girls' teams.
So what year was this?
God, I don't know, I'm ancient.
I'm just wondering.
So I would have been coming up to 12 years old that year, which is at that point was the FA's regulation. You couldn't play any higher than 12 years old within a mixed team. Yeah. There were no girls' teams, they did not exist at that time. So it's very difficult, and I thought that was it. My dream at that point at 11 years old was to play for Walsall Football Club, and I was walking out that tunnel. And then I realised I couldn't do that. So bless them, my dad and granddad searched the earth. And it took until I was 13, and at 13 years old I signed for a women's team. So I was playing adult football at 13 because that's all that was available. Had to change my name every week. It was great fun.
Talking of names, I used to like Walsall actually because their ground used to be named after me, Fellows Park. So you know.
Oh right, okay, yeah.
Actually,
that's not quite true.
Every time I drove by Spaghetti Junction, it's like, oh, there's my ground.
But it was. Whether I should say that now, they shouldn't get in trouble. It was a long time ago, but it was actually Walsall Football Club who set up a women's team, which meant I could continue playing football. So I do owe a lot to them, a lot to Walsall Football Club, and I appreciate that because I wouldn't have been able to continue playing if it wasn't for that club.
You've been involved in men's football as well. So how did you get involved in the men's side of the game?
So I eventually gave up playing when I was 19. I found it was difficult. I couldn't take the pressure of the abuse, the kind of training we were getting. We were told we had to be physically tougher than the men. We had to be physical. We had to go out there to hurt people. That's the kind of training we had, because there was that we had to show that we could physically stand up to the men, even in the women's game. So I didn't like the way it was going, and it wasn't effective for me. So I gave up playing, went and sorted myself a career out because I needed to do that. And then I moved to Somerset, and within a few years I had young children then. I was involved with Minehead Football Club and started coaching under 6s, littlies. Basically worked my way up from the 6s up to the 18s. Then I was asked by the fabulous Alex Pope if I'd join in with the first team at Minehead. That happened. I stayed there. I managed the team myself through COVID and for another year after that. I believe we had our best season we'd had for 7 years in that year I was there. Let's point out these. Before I left. And I had a decision when I left. What was amazing when I left Minehead was I had 5 or 6 clubs contact me. A lot of women's clubs, Bishops, Lydia, Kensham, people like that who wanted me to go over. But I had to think about what I was doing. I was making, and I knew I was making myself visible within the men's game, though I'd like that to be more. And I believe Walsall FC have just sacked the manager and want Sabrina to go over there. That would be fantastic, Sabrina, for the women's game and women's coaches if you want to do that. But just needed to point that out. But it's that's what made my decision. I think I've always thought, people have always said to me, you're ahead of your time, that's your problem. And I thought, well, actually, that's fine. Not actually what I want, but by making myself visible and being there, then hopefully more women, more females will make themselves visible and make that step, whether it's in the men's game, the women's game. Just know there's no barriers. Just know that they can do that, because I've done that, somebody else has done that. And one day I might meet a female coach when I go to a match, which would be lovely. So I suppose that's my intention, and that's why I chose to stay at Watchet and go to Watchet.
And stay in the men's game.
Yeah.
So what's the future hold? What's the next 5-10 years?
I'm going to take over the FA. It's a difficult one. I've got what I would say, it's not a massive job, but given what I believe in football and what I believe is beneficial to clubs like Watchet, it's going to be a process to get them into the right place where they're able to, as a club, get to where they need to be and use their youth and those players coming through to be able to perform better. They're also in a situation where they're stuck in the league they're in because of facilities, because of where they are, and I think that's something I want to revisit with the FA at some point. And then I have got to think, what's that next step? What's that next barrier I want to break down? Mm-hmm. For women in the men's game, in the women's game. Do I go over to the women's game? Do I put myself up for the Walsall job? You know, they sack the managers every year, so there's a chance. But yeah, I think that is very much my incentive of making change within football, and making sure that people know they've got opportunities wherever they want to be. So what that next step is, I'm sure everybody will find out in the next few years.
What is it that drives you to make the change in football?
I think, well, a lot of it is seeing the change happening behind me, which can be hard sometimes, and I think that's another reason that it's difficult for me to go back to the women's game, because it was difficult for me and I didn't have those opportunities. But seeing those opportunities open up, seeing things change, seeing how the England women's team is doing now, and I represented England youth when I was playing, and yeah, the opportunities we had weren't brilliant. I even had to pay for my flight and a hotel. So, you know, but seeing that change, hopefully seeing that change as regard to coaches and managers as well, hopefully within the National League at some point, I think that's always going to be what drives me, knowing that people behind me will get that better opportunity. The opportunities of the things I wanted to do when I was a kid, and I always go back to that. My intention was to play for Walsall, like every young kid. I didn't quite get that, though I did walk out of Besca for Walsall youth, Walsall women's team at one point in front of 3,000 people, which was amazing. But I want people to have those opportunities. I want kids to be there and say, actually, I want to play at Wembley one day, or I want to do this one day, and know that, yeah, you've got to work at it. and maybe you might not quite get to the peak of what that dream is. You know, you might have to go to Forest Green. Forest Green. But those opportunities are there, and there are paths there for you to take, which there wasn't when I started. So
you've been amazing. Your story is fantastic, and the wealth of experience that you bring to the game as a whole is so valuable, and you're an asset to all clubs that you've been with and are with and will ever be with, and that's a really good position to be in for yourself. So just keep working, keep doing what you're doing, and your dreams and the people's dreams behind you will come to fruition because of what you drive and the passion that you have to make it.
If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the channel, and obviously give us a thumbs up and a like if you've enjoyed the content today. At some point in the future, we're going to invite some fans into the studio to come and join us while we're recording a podcast. So you'll need to be subscribed in order to have any chance of that happening. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the channel. And if you want to get extra content and support the channel, then check out the Patreon link in the description.